All right, well, we are going to go ahead and get started. Well, again, welcome everybody to this month's ABMA ABC's Animal Behavior Conversations. My name is Becky Wolf. I am a board member for ABMA and also our conference content committee co-chair. And again, I want to welcome you guys from all across the world. We're really excited. We are able to make this a little bit more international. So we do have quite a few folks from around the globe joining us. For those of you who are ABMA members, welcome. If you're not a member, well, welcome to hopefully your introduction into kind of what ABMA is. And if you guys have questions, you can either put them in the chat box or we'll be more than happy to try to answer some maybe at the end. So again, if you've been before, we kind of just have every other month kind of Zoom chat session where we're going to pick different topics, talk about training, enrichment, all sorts of things. You guys for this one submitted a ton of questions, which is great. So I know that we're going to have some really good conversations. I myself have never worked with Pinniped, so I am going to be stepping aside and allowing two of our international ABMA board members to kind of take over this discussion. We have Ellie Newman-Guth from Jerusalem Zoo and Lizzie Durkin from Colchester Zoo in England, and they are going to kind of take you guys on this trip of discussing Pinniped husbandry. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you ladies and welcome.
Thanks, Becky. And I think we're waiting on Lizzie there. There we go. Lizzie, I'll head over to you.
Hi. So yeah, welcome everybody. Bear with me, I've completely lost my voice, but I'll do my best. So of course, this is hosted by the ABMA. So just a little introduction to myself. So I'm Lizzie Durkin. I work at Colchester Zoo in the UK. I've been working with pinnipeds for about 4 years now, so I'm relatively new. And that's about it. I mean, there's a great picture of me in Winnipeg there. So I'm going to pass you over to Ellie so she can tell you a little bit more about her.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Ellie. I'm currently working at the Jerusalem Zoo in Israel, coordinating their training and welfare programs. But I worked for 22 years at Taronga Zoo in Sydney, Australia, with pinnipeds. So everything ranging from like Australian sea lions, New Zealand fur seals to leopard seals. So pinnipeds are dear to my heart. So I'm very, very, very excited to be thrown back into the pinniped world again. I think Lizzie's going to kick things off by explaining what we're going to go through today and how we're going to run this, and then hopefully it'll be a chance for everyone else to participate as well.
Yeah, so as Becky said, we had loads of topic suggestions. So it was really, really hard to go through them and actually work out what we're going to talk about, because obviously we've only got an hour and a half. So hopefully on the next slide. You got this, Ellie.
It's very slow to jump for whatever reason, so
that's okay, I can wing it. So we had quite a lot of topics. So we're going to try and cover blood draws because that was the #1 thing that people wanted to talk about. It was highly suggested, people wanted to chat about it. So blood draws is definitely something we're going to cover today. And we're also going to look into common health issues, specifically eye health, because that is a massive hot topic at the moment, and other health issues if we can find some time for that and have some discussions about that. If we do have time, we're also going to look at enrichment and exhibit modifications. And because there was just so many different topics to talk about with pinnipeds, it might actually be, if there's enough interest, we'll actually do another Zoom again in the future, so we can try and cover just a little bit more, because we know we are tight for time and there's a lot to talk about, and we all want to talk about pinnipeds so much. So we'll see what we kind of bash out today, and then we'll see if we have time for another one in the future to try and cover as much as possible so everyone can network and get ideas and get that little bit more knowledge. Basically, all the way through this, we want you guys to ask questions. So you can ask questions in the chat. You can also raise your hand so you can actually speak to us as well. So let us know through either option if you've got a question or want to discuss something. To try out the chat function, one of the things was mentioned with the diets. People were asking kind of what people are feeding their pinnipeds. So what we need to do is in the chat really quickly just pop in what species you work with, and kind of the bulk of what species of kind of fish you feed them, because then hopefully if there's particular people out there that are really interested in diets or a particular species, those contacts you're instantly there, you can network, you can have those conversations throughout this. So pop that in the chat. So just what species you work with and kind of the major fish species that you are feeding your animals. And
All right, thanks, Lizzie. Yeah, that's good. And if anyone just wants to also write where they are, like which institution they work for, that also helps in hunting you down later.
There'll be a lot of that, I'm sure. So just really quickly as well, this whole Pinniped is very specific. We've done quite broad topics in the past for our previous Zoom chats, and we have gone Pinniped crazy for this one, mainly because we just had our ABMA conference last month, and so of course there was a lot of Pinniped conversations there. We actually had 2 meetups, which was great, and obviously that had a really good turnout. And then I came back to the UK and we just held a Pinniped husbandry conference at Colchester Zoo in the UK, and so it just shows how much there is that opportunity to talk to people. People want to learn so much more and obviously expand on our knowledge, so hopefully we can offer that in this Zoom and hopefully future ones as well. So yeah, over to you, Ellie.
Great, thanks, Lizzie. And just because I know the question will come up, this Zoom does get recorded and gets put an animal professional where members can access that. But for everyone else, we will summarize some of the information in the chat. So if we're getting all this information about different food fed out and different questions, we might put a little summary together, and then we will put that on the ABMA Facebook page under the post for this. So make sure you jump onto Facebook and like the ABMA so you can see that post come up when we summarize all this information, and we'll put it there. And then there'll be future information about future meetings about this.
Hey,
all right. Hi.
Hey, just FYI, I did talk to Jake, and I think we are going to put this recording, because it's some non-ABMA folks as well. We're going to put it on our YouTube channel. You won't be able to see the chat information, but you'll at least be able to see the presentation itself.
Amazing. And then if we make that chat into some sort of document, we can check that on Facebook. So that's great. Perfect. Thank you. That's perfect. Perfect. And Lizzie and Becky, I can't see all the chats and people's hands. So if you want to jump in, if anyone wants to add anything. But we are going to start, as Lizzie mentioned, with blood draws, because we had so many questions about blood draws. And we had different questions about the best places for consistent blood draws. People have some issues with rear flipper veins. If the caudal spot is tough, any tips for that? A lot of people are talking about the jugular, but they're worried and they're concerned about the safety of this. So we do only have about 15 or 20 minutes to go into blood draws today. So what we thought we'd do is I've sourced 4 different videos of different types of blood draws, and I have people here from each of those videos to talk about them, and we'll maybe give like a 2 or 3 minute summary. I'm throwing everyone on the spot, although I think they were a bit prepared, but about the videos about the taking the blood in that particular way, the pros, the cons, some tips for training it. And then we'll throw it out to everyone for questions and discussions about those videos or about blood draws in general. So we do have a lot of experienced people here as well that will help us with that. So what I'm going to do is go through these 4 videos. They're each like about a minute or a minute and a half long. I'll let everyone watch it. And then what we'll do is, I think we have Pablo from Columbus Zoo. I'm here from Taronga. We've got Geraldine Lacave from Marine Mammal Vets. There's, I think it's Nautica Aquarium. Geraldine will correct me if I'm wrong, in France with the great blood draw. And then we've got the Theatre of the Sea. But I'm not sure if anyone's here from them, but I do have someone here to talk about that, talking about that type of blood draws as well. So I'll call on them as well. Julie, I'll call on you after Kolomaisky. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your names wrong, but she's going to talk a little bit about those type of blood draws after. So let's watch the videos. Put your questions in the chat or put your hand up if you have pressing questions, and then I'll call on each of those people to talk about it. So if there's nothing stopping me, please let me know if you don't see the video playing, but it should be playing now. This first one is just a snippet from a voluntary rear flipper blood draw from Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. And after we've watched all the videos, Pablo, I might get you to talk to this. So let us go through everything. first. I have turned the sound off, but just so everyone can concentrate, I guess. So this video is actually part of a longer video that Columbus Zoo did for us on different husbandry training behaviors, and we might see a few more later on. But I don't know, public, can you write in the chat what species this is of sea lion? I'm assuming Californian, but we've got a happy sea lion there afterwards. This next video is a bit of an older one that was from Taronga Zoo with leopard seals. We used to take blood this way with them. We don't house leopard seals anymore, but this was very, very successful technique. And I think the next video from Geraldine is a similar technique. Okay, sorry, you can watch them again if we want. So Geraldine, please let me know if I've spelt the names wrong or pronounced them wrong anywhere, but this is a great video you can find on Facebook as well, on Geraldine's Facebook page. I'm sending everyone there. And hopefully Geraldine will talk a little bit about this once we've finished all the videos. And yes, Geraldine's corrected me, Nausicaa, not Nautica, I apologize. And I'll put the sound back on for anyone who speaks French. I think it's French. Oh, I need to show the happy face at the end. It's the best part. And then our last one is from the Theatre of the Sea. It's also a bit of an older video, but it's a nice example as well. So I'll see if there's volume. This, I don't think there is. So what we'll do is I'll let you watch this video, and then maybe we'll get Pablo first for a couple of minutes just to explain the process they did, and then Geraldine, and then maybe I'm not sure if anyone's here from Theatre from the Sea, but Julie can maybe speak to training this behavior. She says she's done it a bit. Okay, perfect. And what I might just do is, if I can jump back to this great little diagram here that sort of indicates some of the different places that you can take blood, and that credit is down there. You can see, you can find this article published online. So Pablo, are you there?
Oui, I'm here.
It's all French today. Are you happy to just give us a little talk through about your blood taking, that first video that we saw of the rear flipper blood taking, and any challenges you experienced with that, and any tips you might be able to give everyone?
Yeah, sure. I'm pretty successful when I try blood on the rear flipper, so that's why I never, like on big males at least, it's a winter or the summer, I can take blood on the rear flipper, so it's not really challenging when you know how to do it. And I had the best teacher ever, because it's Geraldine who taught me everything for that. So on big males, I don't really face any challenge. As soon as you have the experience and the practice to see or feel the vein, then it's pretty easy to just insert the needle in the vein and get blood. So if that topic is about the location, I always go for the flipper first. And then if the vet needs a lot more or faster, or if it's on female during the winter and I cannot have any blood from the flipper, then I will go to the gluteal vein. But I cannot really think about any challenge as soon as you, as the person who is taking the blood, so you or your vet tech or your vet has experience and know how to do it. I don't feel that is super challenging. I see in the chat that someone is asking, is the pressure being applied next to the digit? So usually I will look in between all the fingers, and if you put a little bit of alcohol first, it's easy to see the vein or to feel the vein. But once again, the first time that I did that with Geraldine, I was not able to feel or see anything. It took a lot of practice to be able to feel, to see, and to have blood. So I consult at another facility 3 months ago, and they were not successful having blood, and the vet were saying that animals are not well trained enough, and the trainer of course said that it's the vet that doesn't know how to take the blood. And I was successful to take blood on all the animals from the first try, which is really showing that it's the practice. The more you'll practice, the more you'll feel the vein, the more you will see the vein, the more you will practice to put the needle in the vein. If the animal is well trained, there is no reason that you will not have blood. So there is not really a trick. I apply pressure, I see the vein, I feel the vein, I put the needle in it. That's funny that you showed that video, because I think that the only time in my life that I took blood without a butterfly. So usually I use a butterfly and it's a lot easier. I find out, and maybe Geraldine can jump on that, but I found out that the size of the syringe that you're using for the flipper is really important. I know that some vets are trying with like a 20 cc or 10 cc. I don't have a lot of success with those syringes because it's too big, and when you pull on the syringe, the suction is so big that the vein will collapse and you cannot have any blood, or it's more difficult at least. I have a lot of success with the 6 cc syringe, a butterfly. I use a 21G, I think. Yeah, not really a lot of other trick, that just train your animal for the duration. And it worked really well on males. It's more tricky on females. When it's cold, you have to have like a hot towel or make them really active before to take the blood. I don't know if there is anything else that you want me to share, but that's how I do it.
No, that's perfect. If anyone has any questions, put them in the chat. But if I know a lot of places, like some people will use warm towels, or might use tighten the ankle before. So if anyone has any other tips for, especially if you're having problems with females, like to get that vein there. I know people have even tried in the dark using a torch. I've seen a few presentations on that. I know we once tried, I think at the hospitals now, they have these special torches for children where you can see the veins. And we did try that, but it didn't work. But maybe they've got new technology now. So if anyone has any other tips or ideas or questions, please let us know. I might jump over to you, Geraldine, if that's okay. If you want to add anything to what Pablo said, and then also talk about the different techniques that you've used to take blood. I know you've had lots of experience and what you find works the best.
Yeah, sure. It was very interesting what Pablo said. By the way, hello, Pablo, the French-speaking people here. Before I go into this, I wanted to mention something that I'm a bit worried about the drawing about your eared seal, because you speak or you show the different places that you can take blood from. You cannot take blood in an eared seal from the epidural sinus. That would be dangerous, but you can from, and how do you call it? I mean, the problem with French and the other language, a non-eared seal. So sea lions, you do not take blood from the epidural sinus because the veins, the nerves run through. So it could be potentially dangerous. Whereas seals like the leopard seal, which was the video, or all kind of seals, actually the nerves divide higher up. So you can reach that area that's between the vertebra. So I think it's important to mention the area. There are different areas where I'm speaking as a vet here, but doing a lot of training. What Pablo mentioned as well, it's very important to see the veins. And you were asking the question, Ellie, do you have tips if you don't see the vein or small females or whatever? My recommendation as a vet is that if you do not see the vein, don't even try, because it's going to make it worse. It's not going to be okay. And I'm speaking about the superficial veins of the flippers. The gluteal, we don't see the vein. In other places, we don't see the vein. We need, I'll come back to that in a second. We need about a very good position. But if you don't see the vein, it's going to be very, very difficult. What helps? Yeah, hot towel can help make them swell, some pressure, but also make the animal work before. Or if, for example, they were lying in the sun and very warm, and then you decide that's the moment to take blood, don't make them go back into the water before you take the blood. If they're lying nice into the sun, that's the moment you want to take the blood. If you're going to take it from the superficial veins from the flipper, because they're going to be more swollen. So that helps a lot. And the interdigital veins are different than the superficial veins. Superficial veins are the ones that you see, just like we have like veins that are popping up on, our hands. Some people have them very visible, some not. The interdigital veins are really the ones that are along the digit, between the bones. It's more difficult to access them. It's easier in bigger animal, but it's more sensitive if you do it voluntarily. So that's just a little comment that I had on that one. I like the gluteal because if you hit it, you get a big quantity of blood in a short time. But the gluteal takes time to build up and to train. You absolutely need your animal to be in a perfect position, down, relaxed, and not move for a while. And as you build up the training, and you really have to make, the setup and the writing of your different steps. And the first time that you're really going to go to the gluteal, which is like 6, 7, 8 centimeters deep, the person doing it has to write down the position and the angle of the needle. We have a general anatomy and a general description how to do it, but every animal is going to be a bit different. So once you do it, you would do it once or twice in this position. And then, X weeks later, you'll do it another one until you know the position for your own particular animal. I have taken blood also from the brachial vein. What I found out is that in the northern countries where it's colder, we cannot have access to that vein. It's too cold. Whereas in the hotter countries and where the animals are a little bit lighter, we have a good access to that one. So, that's important to know. Jugular vein, yes, but you have to have a good, the person that you saw in Theatre of the Sea is Mike Renner. He's really good at taking blood. And he does it also in the jugular vein, of big males. The brachiocephalic one, you do not want to touch voluntarily. That's the one actually to euthanize the animals, because there's a lot, it's a mix of arteria and veins, but there's also a lot of nerve and lymph area there. That is not an area that would try to take blood in a voluntary way. I would be a bit afraid. So that's general remarks, and I would be happy to entertain any more specific questions.
Thanks, Geraldine. Great to have you here with your specific experiences. We appreciate it. And some great comments there. I've got, I think if you're still on here, Julie, I'm not actually sure where you're working now, but I was in touch with Julie about that Theatre of the Sea. And she said she's been doing a lot of training from the brachial veins. Julie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, do you have anything to add about some of the ways you have trained that behavior, what's worked and what might not have?
So yes, I trained the brachial bloods with SAIC. I'm now at Ocean Connections though. We used Theatre of the Seas video, so we did very similar, same position, and that position worked well. Certain animals we would have to roll a little bit more ventral, just depending on how it would help the vein pop a little bit more. Some other things we would do is check before we decided which side we were going to stick. We would ultrasound the flipper first to see if one had a larger vessel on one side or the other before we decided which one we were going to go with, because one side would always be bigger than the other for whatever reason, and it was different on each animal. Hot compresses worked. It was a small finicky vein. Our vet staff had a lot of issues with it. Once they got good at it, they would get it pretty much every time. Until they got to that point, it was a lot of trial and error. They compared it to like a cat vessel. It rolled a lot. They would go through it pretty easily. So they had a lot of issues trying to get it. But once they got the hang of it, it was pretty consistent that they would get blood every time they stuck.
Okay, perfect. And I'm interested to know, like maybe people can put in the chat as well. I know different facilities have different processes and procedures, but I know when we used to do this, we had like what we called a one stick rule. So whether it was training or whether we were actually taking blood, if we stuck a sea lion with a needle, that would be it for the training session. Do other facilities do that, or do some people keep going until they get blood? Are there any sort of things that people might use in terms of the training and trying to keep this as positive as possible for the animals? I don't know, Julie, if you guys had anything like that, or you would just...
We trained redirects on the animals. So we started with one stick, and then we would work up. Like we had a limit. Sometimes it was one stick, but we did keep it variable for them. So it wasn't just you could stick until inevitably you get blood. There was a limit. But we did train redirects on the animals. So if a vet staff was close, you could redirect if they needed to. We didn't do a completely pull out and try again, but you could redirect the needle once you were in.
Okay, thanks. And Pablo's just written in the chat, usually sticks once and then redirects without removing the needle. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I don't think we have any other questions at the moment about blood taking, but I really appreciate everyone, the three of you, for chatting with us and talking about it. If anyone has questions, keep writing your questions. If something pops up later on, a question that you're thinking about, let us know, because both these three, Geraldine, Pablo, and Julie, have been really, really approachable with this, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer questions. But we are going to move on to our next general topic about pinnipeds, and I'm going to head that over to Lizzie. Hopefully you're still there, Lizzie.
Yeah, I'm still here. My voice is too, just. So the next topic is common health issues. And obviously that is hugely diverse. So it was kind of like, where do we even start with this? So very luckily, Columbus Zoo have sent us this fantastic video. So it's a nice video of lots of different health checks and stuff that they do. So we're going to have that kind of playing in the background. So one of the main ones that did come up was eye health. So especially in older pinnipeds, we're seeing more and more eye problems. So that is something that is a lot of concern to a lot of people. But of course, health issues can be many, many different things. So obviously training our animals for all these different health checks as well is obviously going to be a massive benefit, because especially as our pinnipeds are getting older, we're going to get more and more health problems. So the more we can set them up for success with these trained behaviours, even things like the x-rays and stuff, as you can see in this video, is obviously going to mean things are a lot less stressful for animals and a lot less stressful for us. This is brilliant that Columbus have put this together, because it does show obviously such a wide range of behaviours that can be trained to help identify health issues and monitor our animals. Now, as we go through the video, if anyone has any other health checks that they do, please put that information in the chat. Or if anyone wants to particularly talk about something, feel free to raise your hand and we can chat about it. But obviously this is quite a lot of the behaviours that you commonly see with trained pinnipeds. And obviously a lovely voluntary blood draw that we just saw. And something that also came up with the topics was people wanted to know whether it's always the vets that are doing things like the blood draws and the injections, or whether keepers and trainers are also allowed to do that. So if you could just put vet or keeper trainer or someone else, if there's someone else, pop that in the chat, because it'd be really interesting to see how many people are getting the opportunity to do that for themselves, or whether it is something that solely vets are having to do, because of course that's going to direct conversations as well as to the conversations we have with our vets, if it's the vets that are always doing those things. So of course that's going to impact training as well, depending on who is doing it. Okay, starting to get some answers through. I do wonder as well, when we go through all this chat, we'll maybe make a poll of that and kind of give you some statistics as to whether it's vets or keepers that are allowed to do it, because again, it might help change some of the conversations that we're having and some of the training that we are doing. Ellie, did we have any more of the video? Or was it blood draws?
No, that was just the blood draws, just the blood draw.
Okay.
But I think, yeah, one of the questions was definitely about the hydration and the respiratory samples.
Yeah, and this is a topic that me and Ellie were discussing actually just before this. So hydration is something that we come up on a topic, but neither me or Ellie have ever had to train that with our pinnipeds. So we just wanted to open the floor as to what situation people are training that, and what reasons people are training that for. And because we're trying to work out if it's just like a climate thing or something we should be training. So I don't know if anyone wants to like add that to the chat, or whether anyone wants to raise their hand and chat about their scenarios that they've done hydration and had to use it.
Geraldine, this sounds like something that you probably would have seen. Have you seen any training for hydration or gastric samples? I guess that's what they're talking about.
Well, actually, let me try to put the camera on. Yes, in the parks that I follow up or whatever, we have like the setup, what are the things that we're going to train the animals to do. And for me, hydration, gastric sample and voluntary endoscopy are really top of the list, because if you check out what are the major problems that pinnipeds can have, unfortunately in the zoological environment, is the ingestion of foreign body. So if you have a chance to voluntarily at least check if your animal has done something that it was not supposed to do, like eat something, it helps. But rehydration in the time of molting, or when the animal's a bit down or receiving some treatment, it's quite top of the list. Also, what people don't always think about rehydration is that I use it for ultrasound, because if I need to check what's the quality of the lining of the stomach of my animal, or if the digestion is happening okay, or if they have a delay of ingestion of whatever, if the trainers are able to give them, when they have not eaten yet in the morning, about 2 liters of water, and then I go and do straight away the ultrasound, I have such a much better image of the stomach, and I can access it much better. So we always think about giving water as hydration or taking gastric samples. but it helps for a lot of other stuff. So yeah, in all the facilities or the collections that I follow up, that's top of the list for training. Hope this helps.
Perfect. Thanks, Geraldine. Appreciate that. We've actually, Pablo's got a video, and I think this is what he's got a video on. So Becky's going to make you a co-host, Pablo. As soon as that comes through, I think you might be able to share your screen. I'm not sure if I have to stop sharing mine. Julie, did you want to add something while Pablo's working out his screen?
Yeah, I've trained hydration with the Navy Sea Lions. All of them are voluntary. All of them know voluntary hydration. We use it for when it gets hot there. So we check their temperatures regularly. So if they seem to be overheated, we hydrate. If they're going in for procedures, they get regular hydrations. If for some reason they are going off diet for whatever reason, if they're having health issues or just not getting their base diet, then we would add hydration as well to their daily routine. So there's a lot of reasons that we would utilize their hydration throughout the day. Some of our older boys would get it multiple times a week, just to maintain and help them out. But all of them know it and practice it regularly.
Okay, great. Thank you. I don't know if anyone's got any training plans on training this behavior that they could possibly share, because I think that would be an interesting one. But Pablo, if you're ready to go, that'd be great. I mean, I'm loving the yellow.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that was back in France. And what Geraldine said, I think was exactly what we did with this one. I also want to say that hydration for a sea lion, you can use Jello. It will provide a lot of water for your animal if your animal is still eating and you want to provide hydration. But this is the training that we do. I don't know if I can turn the sound up. So yeah, just watch it. So I believe Geraldine was asking for more than a 1.5 meters inside the animal to make sure that it's safe and you're in the stomach. And Geraldine, you agree with that?
Yes, the stomach is way further down than what people think. You know, they would try to think that, you know, or measure from there to the, you know, the chest level or the flippers, but actually the stomach is way, way back. So you will need 70, 80 centimeters before you reach the stomach. And if you want, depends what you want to do, but for intubation, you can probably give water before. But if you want to reach the stomach, it's further down. But yeah, it's long.
Yeah, and do not, like, the first step are fine to train, like just the trainer and desensitize the animal with the tube in his mouth. But as soon as you want to go in the throat, you need a vet approval. You need to make sure that, because you can do a lot of wrong things. So anybody here that wants to train that behavior, you need to have a clear plan approved by your vet. You need to understand what you're doing. You don't want to hurt the animal. So it's not it's an easy training, but it's not without any risk. So we have to make sure that the vet is aware and approve the training plan.
Yeah, I think that what you want to use for it actually horse nasopharyngeal tubes. These are the best ones because they have an extra opening at the end and they're very smooth. Also, if your tube is too soft, and I think that Pablo, you can, elaborate a bit more on that. If your tube is too soft, you won't be able to pass the larynx of the sea lion or the seal, which is a really big and strong larynx. So you need a tube that is large enough and thick enough. And I think that people are afraid of the size of the tube and try sometimes to go to a narrower tube. And because of it, then it's not hard enough and it kinds of coil instead of passing through the larynx. If you think of the size of the fish that those animals eat, it's quite big. So you're not going to hurt your animal by passing a tube. The difference that you want to do it under control. So, and it also depends what you want to do it for. What I found out, and I think that you saw it in the video of Pablo, is that with time, I like to intubate if we're going to hydrate with water in the tube until the end, because quite often what happens is that people will pass the tube until the stomach and then put the water, and you have all that air that's inside the tube that's going to be pushed into the stomach, and you don't want to push extra air in at that time. So I like to intubate the way it was showed in the video, with water to the end, but you need a contra pressure system to prevent the water from, leaping out.
That was awesome, Pablo. Your profile right now on Zoom is how everyone's feeling, I think, watching that video. That was great. It was really awesome. Julie, did you have anything to add about the way you use that behavior and trained it, or is it looks very similar to what the video that Pablo shared?
It's very similar. We do use a smaller tube, and then we used a PVC biter to hold their mouth open instead of having another trainer hold their mouth open. But that's the only differences we used.
Oh, thanks, Lizzie. I think it's still you.
Yeah, that was super interesting. I'm glad that we went down that path because, yeah, like I said, me and Ellie were chatting beforehand and we were like, this sort of thing that we should be training, and then we just had so many questions. So that's answered a lot for us, and I know that me and my colleagues are already having conversations, and it's opened up even more doors. So hopefully for other people it has too. Was there anything else on that list that we particularly? Or should I talk about eyes? Because eyes is a lot.
Oh,
so
there's your eyes.
Something that came out of the Pinniped Husbandry conference that we had at Colchester Zoo. We had a presentation done by Claudia Hartley, who is an amazing vet in the UK, who does a lot of things with eyes with lots of different species. She's come and worked with us with our pinnipeds. And one of the things that came up in her presentation was this amazing bit of research. And I just think it really shows how important eye health is and how much we need to kind of really be thinking about it, be very conscious of as our pinnipeds are aging, their eye health is pretty much going to deteriorate. So you can see obviously the stats and stuff on the slide, but basically pinnipeds that were under 15 years old were kind of less likely or had fewer incidences, shall I say, of the eye problems, such as things like cataracts. And then pinnipeds that were older than 15, you ended up skyrocketing and they had much higher incidence rates. So obviously that's a major factor, especially in zoos and our aquariums. Our pinnipeds obviously live longer. And so we're obviously having to really think about, how can we reduce this and, how can we make and improve things for our animals. Something else, I have put the reference on there because I was just having a little look through the paper last night, and it is one of the most thorough papers. It is incredible. There might be even more research since this paper in 2010, but it really does kind of highlight some of the main problems and main concerns and things that can contribute to these problems with eyes. And I did pull out something else that Claudia did pull out, which was the pinnipeds that don't have access to any shade were almost 10 times as likely to develop these eye problems compared to pinnipeds that have access to shade. So I don't know what it's like. I'm kind of excited that how international this is. We have got people from all over. So it's going to be really interesting kind of putting out some of this information. But I know in the UK, quite a few places with pinnipeds don't have shade, so it's something that a lot of places are pushing for, and research like this is obviously really going to help. So we were going to ask people a question, but I can't remember what the question was. Oh, it was if people are doing more, I mean, obviously shade is a major factor, but is there anything else people are doing in their collections with their pinnipeds that are to try and obviously help prevent or help manage eye problems? So for us, you know, we do have a few eye ulcers and things like that. So obviously we have the head twist behavior, so we can put eye drops in. So that's something that we've kind of got well underway with all of our sea lions. Shade is something that we're pushing for, so hopefully that's something that's going to help. Yes, Ellie pointed out about sky feeding, so basically trying to reduce your pinnipeds looking up towards the sun, because obviously every time you're doing that, you're obviously causing more problems. Oh, that sounds good. Geraldine, Pablo, who was it? Tell us.
Yes, it was.
You, Geraldine, do you want to inspire us? Tell us a little bit more.
Well, I mean, lately we started that in 2 parks in France, and since then, I mean, I'm just too busy. I never have the time to publish, but we presented it. I found out that eye ultrasound is very helpful. First of all, because they learn faster to do eye ultrasound than body ultrasound, just because you're not touching the eye. You know, it's natural for them to put the head under the water. And it allows us to see, or at least the vet that's used to do it, to see the development of a cataract as a much earlier stage, because we have 2 major problems with the eyes. One is cataract, which is a genetic or age development of a problem of the lens. The other one is keratitis, which is the inflammation of the external part of the eye, the cornea. And these are really 2 different stuff. And everything that's like water quality, sun, and so on is more likely to first irritate your cornea. Now, with age, they develop cataract, but what we don't see from the outside is that we can have early cataract with actually the capsule of your lens that is starting to tear. And you have those animals like blinking all the time, and people will say, but I don't see anything because the cornea is perfect. And actually it's irritating the inside of the eye, the iris, which is one of the most painful affliction that somebody can have, a person or an animal can have. So eye ultrasound for me has helped a lot to identify which animals are starting to have a cataract problem, and we can indeed make, be careful about shade for them, about protection, about extra vitamin, or also start to be ready to potentially, operate them if we need to. So that's what I would say for the eye. But the problem number 1 is the water quality. Number one. Not a good filtration, too high a bacterial count. I'm going to be harsh here, but I'm surprised to see so many zoos that do not make, bacterial analysis of their water, certainly of the back pools, on a regular basis. And that's where the animals are going to get infected, because, they're going outside in the main pool. That's okay. You have a good turnover. And then they come in for the night and they have a smaller pool where they stay in, where you don't have a good turnover, and it stays for like, 6, 7, 8 hours. And people say, yeah, but we change the water every day, but there's no filtration or whatever. And that's where, if they have the tiniest wound on their eye, that's where they're going to get very bad infection. So, it's a mixture. Some part is genetic, sun, vitamin, food, certainly, but the water quality is the worst.
And I think everyone's put lots of things in the chat and lots of tips. There was a question about recommendations on vitamins. Pablo, you answered that. And there's a question on eye drops. I'm not sure if it's brand type of eye drops that the question is, or should we use eye drops? If you want to just...
Well, you have different stuff. You have, eye drops and training. Eye drops are perfect if your animal is well trained. And I'm very much into medical training. And when I see where we have a problem is that places say, yeah, the animal is trained. However, the animal has been trained to receive eye drops and very, very well trained. But what has not been trained is to do it 3 weeks in a row, 4 times per day with physiological water. And so we have actually afflictions that can be really helped by good drops, depends what it is, could be whatever. And the animal would do it 2 days, maybe 3, and then not do it, because that's one of the factor in the training that has been forgotten. So my question for people is like, when you are training desensitization for eye drop, have you reached in your training plan the level where during 3 weeks, 4 times per day, you give 3 drops to the animal, and then you ask the animal to wait 10 minutes, not going back into the water, and then you give the other 3 drops from another treatment, and so on. So that's a part of the training that is forgotten. And I think that's a reason why often eye drops don't help. And it's not because the eye drops don't help, it's because the animal is not trained to receive them really frequently. Okay, can you follow what I'm trying to explain?
Yeah. No, I was trying to do too many things at once. No, definitely. And no, I think that's a valid point. I think some people, they train behaviors as a kind of, in case we need it, but you're kind of getting to a certain stage. And then obviously it's very different actually training it just in case versus actually training it because you're actually having to use that behavior constantly. So that's such a valid point that hopefully people can take away from them, or take from this, to try and improve those shaping plans, and train it more than just kind of in practice, do it even more.
Also, do people not forget to rinse the eye of the animal before? Because they have a very strong tear mucus production. And actually, if you have an animal that has already a keratitis, so an infection of the cornea, and it's going to produce already more tear production because of the irritation, that tear film is very thick. And so if people decide, because the animal has a keratitis, and here's the veterinarian speaking, but explaining how it's important for training. So if you decide to put the drops, the treatment drops on an infected eye that has already a very high level of tear producing, that is really thick in mucus, your drops are not going to reach the cornea. So it's important, if you have an eye that is quite infected for whatever reason because of keratitis, it's helpful to rinse it before. So you try to get that mucus layer protection, which is a normal protection, away. So when you're going to put the drops, it is actually going to be absorbed by the cornea and not being stopped by the tear, the tear mucus that they have. And it's something that is often forgotten. And a reason why people would say, eye drops don't help with sea lions. I think it helps, but it depends how you give it.
And I think that's a really great thing that's coming from tonight, is that we're not just looking at it from a trainer's perspective and the behavioral perspective, because, often we train mouth opens or flipper presents, and then we just get into this day-to-day routine of doing it, but we forget we're actually training it for a reason. We're training it to look inside the mouth. We're training to inspect the flipper. And so bringing that veterinary aspect to it, which is almost making me think it's something I might want to add to my training plan template. What is the veterinary, what is the veterinary side of this? We always know what the vets need when we talk about blood draws, but things like eye drops or all these other behaviors, how do we make it so it's as successful as possible from a behavior standpoint, but also from a veterinary standpoint? And I think if anything I take away from tonight, I think that's going to be it. So I appreciate all of that, Geraldine. Thank you.
Cool.
Lizzie, did you want to add anything else on this before we move on?
There was just a couple of questions in the chat that I just kind of wanted to ask Geraldine, maybe for selfish reasons, but lots of people are asking as well. So in terms of staining and using eye drops, can it cause negative sensations such as stinging? And if some treatments can cause stinging, is there a way that we can mimic that in our training to obviously get our animals used to that sort of sensation?
Yes, and I think maybe Pablo can help me comment on this, because many, many years ago, when we started working on the voluntary, I mean, when we were not doing underwater eye ultrasound, but like direct contact, I actually put eye drops, you know, in the eye of the trainer, so they would have an idea what it would feel, you know, like, you know, anesthesia drops or this drop or whatever. So I think that if the trainer, I mean, I'm not sure I can do that in the United States, but we can do that in Europe. If the trainer feels what the animal is going to feel, the trainer is going to feel much more comfortable treating the animal, because often it's like there's a fear, ooh, but if I put a needle in the animal, it's going to hurt the animal. If I put an eye drop, it's going to hurt the animal. And that fear from the trainer is going to be transmitted to the animal. Now, obviously, there are absolutely some drugs or eye drops that will sting more than others. And actually, local anesthesia is the one that's going to sting most, you know, in the eye. So people will say, no, I'm going to put, you know, topical anesthesia so I can do a lot of stuff afterwards. That's probably the one that's going to sting the most in the eye. But if we speak about injection, there was some talks about injections before, like if we do voluntary anesthesia or whatever, yeah, some drugs hurt more than others. So it is important that you have a good relationship with the veterinarian, and that the veterinarian knows a little bit about training. It helps to know what works and what doesn't. But you're really right, Lizzie, to say, you know, is this hurting the animal? Yes, like it would hurt us. So if we work on it positively, step by step, we can teach the animal, like we can teach ourselves, that this is something that's maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but it's okay. I can go through it because, you know, I'm there with my trainer and I'm going to get a great reward afterwards, or, you know, and I'm not forced to do it. So it's all about the way the training is done. It's really important.
That's great. And then I'm going to ask one more thing, and then I'll stop. Because it's great having you here, Geraldine, obviously with all your knowledge from kind of your side of things. So we had a couple of questions about, obviously you were talking about rinsing the eye. So we had the question of what could you rinse the eyes with? And then the other question we had was, is it sufficient to have an animal eye bath in a bucket of salt water to clean the eyes and then do the eye drop? Like when you talk about rinsing, you talk about like a salt bath, or are you thinking something else?
I think it all depends what you want to do. I'm really speaking about an animal that has a really harsh keratitis, you know, and open its eyes every now and then. That's the moment you want to put the drops in. That's the eye you want to rinse before, because the mucus protection is going to prevent those drops to reach it correctly. Now, if your animal puts the head just underwater, but there's no pressure to push it away, no, because that's what the mucus tier of the eye is made for. You know, there are marine animals and they have that normal production, which is going to come more, you know, when they're outside, you know, in the dry. Definitely it's going to take away a little bit what they have. And, you know, if you have a chance to do it and then put the eye drops, yeah, I would do it. But I think that we had a great video that we've done in Amneville with Pablo many years ago, where we can really flush the eye, you know, we could see it. This was a great video. Doesn't mean that you always need it, but it helps, you know, when you have a treatment that is not going the way you think, maybe there's too much mucus tier that is still on the eye and your product can't reach it. Just little things that make the success of a treatment work, yes or no.
That is super interesting. Thank you for that.
Okay, so I'm gonna we're probably going to start wrapping up, but one thing we wanted to talk more about, because we did have a few questions on this, but this might be something that we do in another Zoom if people are still interested in this as well, is talking about enrichment and exhibit modifications. So how can we improve pool environments, ideas on land? So it might be something for another time, but in the meantime, there is animal welfare expertise that has the idea box catalog. It's pinniped and dolphin cetacean based as well, but there's lots of ideas in there, and they've set it up really nicely with behavioral goals. So if we go on now, we start looking up enrichment, often it will be very item based, but we are trying to move towards, you know, what are these behavioral goals we want from our animals? Do we want our sea lions to spend 15 minutes underwater foraging? Do we want them to utilize their rear flippers more? Whatever it might be. And in this idea box catalog, there are some great ideas. And there's also really nice, only one example I put down there by David Hocking, It was an Australian Fur Seals about forage-based enrichment and how you can get more varied behavior, which we do understand that from enrichment. But I think next time Lizzie and I were talking, if we ever do this again, would be a great opportunity to sort of brainstorm some behavioral goals that we want from our pinnipeds and then match them up with some different enrichments and develop some sort of catalogue. There are a few zoos out there that have enrichment catalogues, but for sea lions and seals. But yes, that is something we want to talk about next time, but we will leave that for now. I'm not sure if anyone wants to add to that now, but that can be for another time. So I'm jumping ahead so much, I think. I just wanted to add this as well, that I know not everyone here is an ABMA member, and this, as Becky said, will be accessed on our YouTube page, and we will put all the data together and information together on our Facebook page. If you are interested in pinniped papers, presentations, we do have, if you are a member on animalprofessional.com, we have all our past conference presentations, so recordings of them. And I did a very quick search, and these are some of the ones that are on there. And this is a very basic search. So there was a lot on there that are the recorded presentations from conferences. So you can access that through your membership if you're interested. And if you are interested in becoming an ABMA member, there's the information there. But in saying that, these Zoom ABC conversations, animal behavior conversations, are not only for members, they're open to everyone. And we really enjoy the fact that we've got such a wide-ranging worldwide community here tonight. So we're really, really appreciative of that. I didn't put Becky's email address there, Becky, because I wasn't sure of what it was and which one you wanted people to email you. But if anyone wants to email us any feedback from this session, if you thought it was valuable, if you would like it to be run differently, if you would like to have future conversations like this, if you need contacts or help with networking, feel free to reach out. I know a few people were asking for ways to get in contact with Julie, Geraldine and Pablo. So if you guys wanted to put your contacts there, otherwise we can pass on messages to them if it need be. So before we wrap up, and I'll hand it over to Lizzie and then Becky to wrap up, I just really wanted to thank everyone for coming. Also thank everyone for the big push for this, because at the conference, the ABMA and Armada conference, it was because of everyone there and all their interest in pinnipeds and discussing, and just this constant community growing and discussing with each other, that this came about. And it's great to see everyone here and have all this participation. There is so much more to talk about. If you feel like you can contribute as well, like you have videos or you might have programs or plans and you'd like to do this again, please reach out so we can get as many people involved as possible. We have so much experience amongst us, and I think that's been really great. Lizzie, did you want to say anything before we finalize, before we wrap up, I should say?
I mean, you covered pretty much everything I wanted to say. I'll say thank you everyone for coming. Me and Ellie really wanted to have a big push for us to be international, to hit more time zones so more people can participate. And it hasn't disappointed. Like, I'm super happy with the numbers. So thank you. And thank you for your contributions as well. We'll really try and get all that information to you guys as soon as possible, so everyone can network and just kind of grow over their ideas and develop with their pinnipeds. And by the chat, it looks like we're probably going to be meeting weekly because we want to talk about pinnipeds so much. But yeah, we'll try and sort something out because yeah, there's a lot to talk about still. So I'm super happy with how it's gone. So thank you, everyone. Becky?
I might just add before Becky jumps in. I know there was a lot of questions on diets, not only about what we feed, but also about how people are managing their diets. And I know this is, Lizzie said this is a great international time zone, but like the Australian side of the world, it wasn't. I asked a few of the Australian team to be here, but it's like 1 a.m. So that didn't work, but maybe next time we'll try have them here, because there's been a few studies done there on different diets and seasonality of diets, and different species and different needs, and what they need. And I think it would be interesting. I think everyone would find it really interesting to hear those studies. So if we do this again, we'll try work out the time zones a bit better. Well, for them as well. But yes, Becky, over to you.
Yeah, I think you guys covered it. I can say, because I've been the organizer for this series, that this is probably the one we had the most questions for. It might just be because it was very species specific, and seeing how much people wanted to chat about. I definitely think we can definitely set another like part 2 up, because I know that there's obviously a lot that you guys did not get to cover. I found it fascinating, and I don't even work with pinnipeds, and I can take some of what you guys were talking about and take it back to some of the species I do work with. So yes, we will definitely try to set up a part 2. How soon it will be. I think we have our next one set for 2 months from now. So maybe in 4 months. I know that seems like a really long time, but it's planning and getting everything set up and that kind of stuff. If you do have anything you want specifically for me, feedback wise and stuff, since I sent out the links to everybody does have my email address. They can just send it to my work email. That is fine. Yeah, great job with this presentation with all the videos and stuff, Lizzie and Ellie. I know you guys put a lot of hard work into this, and it seems like everybody got a lot out of it, and we will definitely, yeah, I know I had some Australian folks reach out if we were going to record this because obviously it is the middle of the night there. So yeah, it's unfortunately impossible to get everybody. So we will definitely at least try to do some sort of international again, because again, we got such a great variety this time of folks. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Great. There was just a last question about an email list. We do, Becky, is there a mailing list that we need to add our contacts? I think just keep tuned in to Facebook is usually the best, but maybe we'll start.
I guess I think if people are really interested from this specific group, because we did have quite a few other folks ask for the link that didn't participate, which is fine. But if you are on this and you would be willing to maybe be part of a group chat, I am happy to be the impetus to gather all those emails and kind of send that list out if we want to do that. Does that sound like an idea?
Let's look at, we can send an email. So we're only putting on Facebook the summary of this. We can also email that out to everyone, and we can put something on there about if you want to be part of group chat. And ABMA is also launching our new community in a month or 2, and we're going to probably have like a pinniped section in that. So that's a great way of sharing resources. If anyone's more information will be about that. But yeah, let's try something like that. I think that's a good idea. Great. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you so much. Great seeing everyone. It's bedtime for us. Lizzie, Pablo, Geraldine, everyone else.